Welcome back to the RedX channel. Today we have Mark Leck, the CEO of RedX, and Connor Snyder, RedX Head of Product, joining us. And they had such an insightful conversation about tips for using AI, setting goals for 2025, and tips to improve your real estate business. Let's go.
How do I incorporate AI into my business? And
Yeah.
AI takes a lot of different forms. There's obviously generative AI that we see with things like ChatGPT, but there's also AI in terms of data, right?
Yeah.
There's machine learning that gets set up to try and identify who are the best possible leads for you to work. And that's one of the things that we're really proud of here at RedX. I mean, we've, for the past 20 years, been innovating on the edge of machine learning and AI to help people find the right leads.
Yes.
To actually make business. What do you think about agents and how they can best apply AI into their business?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a super interesting question. I think ultimately they're going to see it come out in the tools that they're using. I mean, all the tools out there in the market today are trying to find ways that AI is going to enhance the experience of their customers. And so I think, as they work with reputable vendors and other companies out there, they're going to see those companies playing with it. You and I have both seen this. There's a bunch of it that's kind of hokey nonsense out there.
So much of it.
And I would share sort of the advice that a lot of our coaches give, which is be careful not to get distracted by some of that. I think what you're also going to see is you're going to see a couple small things that become really, really powerful. And I think that, the next 6-12 months is going to be super interesting. Obviously, in a lot of the communications that they're having with people, it used to be if somebody was a really powerful writer, good at marketing naturally, that was a differentiator for them as a real estate agent. Now, if you're a weaker writer, right, you could be leveraging AI to kind of make up for your weaknesses, which that's a really powerful thing. And then a lot of people think of AI in terms of what it's going to produce for them, like in that example of content, right? But sometimes it can be really powerful just to check your work on stuff, right? Like, hey, I put this together, give me some feedback on it. So, I mean, the power of these tools and the way that they're changing our world right now is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it feels like there's still so many ways that we're trying to figure out what's the best way to use this. And I think one thing that we're going to see over the next couple of years is, the cost or the value of intelligence is going to go down. Like it's going to be easier for us to get access to this AI intelligence to use wherever we need it, right? I think that also means the value of our humanity goes up a little bit. And so you as an agent really need to be looking for those opportunities to bring that human touch and that human connection to your transactions. Because in the same way that people could go to, Zillow or these big box shops and take the agent out of the transaction, that will continue with AI. But that means that the people that really want someone to guide them through the process are going to find that very, very important. And so you need to be mindful of that as you're engaging with people.
Yeah, agents, I think, need to remember that you cannot automate a relationship. And I think that a lot of the marketing for these tools and stuff kind of try to convince you that you can, but it never works, right?
It's hype.
It's all hype. I think of, two things, right? I had an opportunity to go do a shooting activity as part of a fundraiser for this neonatal rescue nonprofit. And as I go to this event, I brought a couple guests along, and immediately one of the organizers for the event walks up. And this is a guy who he literally remembers every single person's name. I probably first met him like 7 years ago or 8 years ago, didn't see him for 2 years. And we ran into each other and he's like, I know you, it's Mark. Mm-hmm. And you own this company and you do this and you do that. He just remembered everything. And every single time I interact with him, he reminds me that he knows me and deepens our relationship with each other. And that's how he's able to successfully network. And, you can create all the automated nurture sequences you want. You could create a bot that would chat with all your friends, and they might think for a moment that it's really you, but your relationship with them is not getting any stronger, right? Because you don't know that that's going on, right? And so I just think there's a little bit of a fallacy with all of these tools that you can not spend the effort and you'll get the reward at the end. I think agents have to be careful about that. I think the real powerful agents, they know the value of relationships. They know the value of maintaining those relationships and having meaningful connections and remembering who the people are that they're working with. And I think all the tools that they use to support Their activities around that should support those relationships, but they shouldn't ever attempt to get in the way or disrupt those relationships.
Totally. It can be so dangerous to try to automate too much. So I automated my tweets for a little bit. I was automatically posting stuff for me in my voice.
They're still automated. I swear I get those every morning.
Yeah. So I recently turned it off though. So I was at our house, watching TV, and my wife comes downstairs and she's like, "Did you post this?" And I pull it up and it's like, "Oh, nothing like meeting a total weirdo on a coffee date late at night." And she's like, "Were you on a coffee date?" I'm like, "No. Guess I need to turn this off." So like the danger is,
but the AI bot was doing so well.
It was doing so
until
well.
Your wife walked in the room.
So like that's the thing is you can over rely on these tools to the point where you're out of the loop on what they're doing, and it can actually ruin your reputation. Right? Everyone thought I was going on dates. Right? While my wife was at home. And so I think it's really important that we recognize there's a good use for these tools, and then there's ways that we need to make sure that we're involved in the process. Yeah,
I think, look, we're in an industry right now that is changing. I remember being back in the market during 2007 and 8 and 9 when we went through a huge market shift there. This is one that is challenging agents' productions. Last year, we were the lowest home sales per year in the country in 25 years. And this year, I understand we're trending either at the same level or slightly below, right? Less home sales across the country. That means less home sales for all the agents out there. That means less deals. We had one team locally here. I think they used to do easily over 100 deals a year. They're at like 34. And that's a massive decline in the business, right?
Crazy.
70% decline. That means you get an agent that was doing 7 to 10 deals a year and they're lucky to be doing one, right? So agents have to find new ways to be productive and to find leads and people who want to sell their home. And I think that during 2007, 8, and 9, one of the reasons we had such large growth after that time was that difficult time in the market drove a lot of people to find the most cost-effective and productive ways to grow their business, and that was RedX.
So, looking back at that time, the moment we're in now, and we're approaching a new year, there's a lot of agents that are looking at this last year being like, I got to do something different.
Yeah.
Right? What would be some advice that you would give to an agent as they step into the new year?
Yeah. So number one, they should approach their business like it's a business. It's funny. I have this thing where I brand everything, right? So I think that if they don't think of themselves, their individual production as a business, they should call it, Joe Schmo Real Estate LLC or whatever, and say, okay, this is the business. This is the number of deals we had last year. This is the revenue we produced. Here's all the costs we had. So start with the financial P&L. And then really what they have to do in any planning session, it's where do I want to go and where am I, right? It's like your GPS navigation. So figuring out where they want to go, a lot of coaches talk about whether that's building a dream board, setting a financial goal, doing something like that. You have to create a very clear picture of where you're trying to go. And if you contextualize it within the business, I think that's a really good thing because it doesn't have to be just about the money, right? It's like, I want my business to operate in a certain way. I want certain things automated. I want certain challenges that I don't like to deal with gone, right? So try to get a very clear picture of where you want to go. And then you got to get a really clear picture of where you are. And unfortunately, there's not a GPS in business, right? That shows you where precisely you are. It can't plot you on a chart and say, here's where your production is and here's where all the other agents are around you. Well, maybe if you yanked some MLS data, you could figure that out. But if you can get an idea of where you're at, so do a accomplishments list for the previous year. List out everything that you were proud of that your company did. You, Joe Schmo Real Estate, did. Write out a list of lessons learned. What were the things that you learned last year that you didn't fully understand and why, right? And then go through and do a SWOT analysis. So SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths and weaknesses should be internal to the company. So these are things that you recognize as a strength to you. I used the example before of maybe somebody who's got a really good marketing mind. So my writing or my marketing or my branding is really good, right? That's a strength. Maybe their brand reputation is a strength. Maybe their size of their sphere of influence or their network is a strength, right? Write what the strengths are. But then go into the weaknesses, right? What are things that if you could bring in a business consultant and they were doing an evaluation on your business, what would they criticize you for? What would they say, look, you could be doing better in these areas, like your cost control is out of whack. You guys aren't looking at financial reports on a regular basis to help inform decisions that you're making. You spend too long in certain parts of your sales process, or you don't spend enough time practicing scripts and your listing presentations and stuff like that, right? Do an honest assessment of what you suck at and write those out as weaknesses. And then identify opportunities. Like, what are the opportunities that exist around you? These are external now to you, that if you pursued could help you take your business to the next level. And the funny thing about opportunities is most people have them. They just don't spend enough time sitting down and like trying to identify what those are. And as soon as you do that, like if all you did was the SWOT exercise, like you're probably going to start acting a little bit differently because there's awareness, you've written it down. And all this stuff should be written down. It should be in a document that can be an artifact that you can look at. And then the last one is threats. What are the things that are threatening your business? These are external threats to you. And, spend a little time on that. But generally threats tend to fall more into the non-controllable category. But I'll give you an example right now, right? There's been a bunch of changes with the NAR settlement and stuff like that. Well, the NAR settlement could have been a threat, or the fact that we have not become compliant with the NAR settlement, that would be a threat, right? And that's a controllable. So you call that out and you're like, we should get on that. Let's get rid of that threat, right? So that we don't have a compliance risk or something like that. So go through and do a SWOT exercise. And all of these exercises, after you do SWOT, do a financial review, do a personnel review. That means take a look at anybody that's a member of your team, support staff, other stuff, and evaluate them, right? And do this entire assessment. All of these things are like your GPS signal that helps you figure out, where am I actually right now? And then again, if you've got a clear understanding of where you're trying to go, now the next part of that discussion is, what are the goals that I want to set, right? I know roughly where I'm at. I know what my strengths are, my weaknesses. I know some opportunities. I know some threats. I've got a good idea of my financial situation. I know who my people are, what their strengths and weaknesses are, maybe changes I got to make there. And I know I want to get over here. So what is the most important thing I need to do over the next 12 months to get there for 2025? And then what I should do is I should break that down and I should say, okay, if I know where I want to go in 2025, and the way I would write those, by the way, is write some clear objectives with some signs of success. So I want this thing to happen, and these are the signs or the symptoms that this would work out that way. And then after that, it's all about breaking that down at a quarterly level and saying, over the next 90 days, what do I got to do? Then over the next 30 days, what do I got to do? Now over the next week, what do I got to do? One of my old favorite military expressions was, if the objective is clear, a lieutenant can write the strategy, right? And I think that the idea that getting that clarity of like, where are you going? That's one of the most important things. Most people who have a hard time hitting their goals, they're not well defined enough, right? And if they would just get super, super clear on that and then spend the time to figure out where they're at, they'll be able to, the paths that they could take to get there become much more obvious.
Yeah. No.
Sorry to ramble so long.
No, I mean, it's like sage advice. Like, if you want to plan your business well, that's what you need to do. I was in one of the Facebook groups, and there was an agent talking about there was a deal that they had that fell through, and it was like they'd had a drought of deals for several weeks prior to this, and they were like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I need this deal. And one of the things that you said was, it's so easy for us to have lots of opportunities but not recognize them unless we like sit down and think through them.
Yep.
And I think that we all are kind of the sum of our habits. And one of the most important things is to build momentum for you to get to that next goal. And if you are waiting for a deal to fall out of the sky, chances are it's not going to come. If you want to go get those deals, find those little micro wins that you can make. Take advantage of those opportunities, whether it's just setting some phone calls, reaching out to your sphere of influence. Give yourself those goals in a small way and build up. So if you're really struggling to find deals, instead of just waiting for a deal to show up on your lap, find the little things that you can do day to day that you can say to yourself, I'm putting effort in. This is a win.
Yep. I want to just re-summarize how you go through that process for 2025, like the planning process for 2025, or really any annual planning process. So it's 3 things. It's number 1, define where you want to go. Number 2, figure out where you're at. And the way you figure out where you're at is accomplishments, lessons learned, a SWOT analysis. Then you do a financial review and a personnel review. And then once you have those 2 things, you know where you're going, you know where you're at, then all you do is work on what is the best path for me to get there. And those are your goals. And you break those down 12 months, and then every 3 months, every quarter, and then every month and every week. That's what you got to do.